this is Thanksgiving Eve, and people are, the busiest travel day in the year, and people are going home. And, most of them are going home or they're having folks come to their house. Either way, you're going to be with company, one way or the other, and it's usually family, maybe some friends mixed in. But we really want to talk about family today because, that is almost like returning to the scene of the crime sometimes, because if you lived in any kind of dysfunction, and who didn't, and particularly if you grew up at any kind, addiction, or people with eating disorders, or there was, you grew up in some dysfunction. And it doesn't even have to be addiction. It can be, religious addiction. It can be a lot of different things, but and I will tell you, this is not about putting families down, because, I'm going to get in the car in a few minutes and travel to Dallas with my daughters and my kiddos, and we're going to the Dallas Cowboy game, and we do that every other year. My son has a suite, and so we do that every other Thanksgiving. So I don't know if they're listening in, but we've gone through a lot in order to get to where we can have pleasant holidays or pleasant any day. We have to really. There is my friend Heather. Oh my gosh, she's been all over the world. It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too.
Glad you're here. So, I'm not like blaming parents or anything, but it is, some of us did grow up in some dysfunction. And in recovery, what recovery is we grow up. We grow up. And sometimes growing up in dysfunction stunts the growth. But when you get into recovery, take it with you. Take it with you when you go home. I want you to visualize, you are on your way to see the family, and you start out as an adult, and the closer you get, regardless of how many miles or if it's across town, the closer you get, the smaller you get, and by the time you get to the front door, you're probably 4, 5, 6 years of age. And we revert back to some of those old habits, and and those old expectations. We have an expectation of how wonderful everything's going to be. I'll tell you about, I was the matriarch in our family, and what that meant was I got to host every special occasion. I don't care what it was. My sister and her family came here, and we would start out, and my sister, she so wanted to be nice, and she so wanted what we didn't have growing up. And so the first day would be great. The first night, the kids would get along and all that. And then by the second day, it'd be starting going downhill. And our kids, in their adult life, they said that they used to sit back and wonder how long it would take my sister to get mad and gather up all the kids and leave. They would kind of time it, Or if we were at my mother's all together, they would laugh to see which family was going to leave first, because would always be conflict, because there was never a resolution in our family. So the thing about, and I'm hoping that there'll be some newcomers, some brand new newcomers that will be listening to this, because it's difficult, particularly that first year of sobriety. The main thing you have to do is treasure your recovery. it is the most precious thing that you have on board. And for newcomers, it is very important to go in with a plan, and even for those of us that have been around a while, kind of go in with a plan. And if you may be like I was, you may be the only recovering person in your family. I know the first year that first Thanksgiving I got out of treatment, it's been 40 years ago. I got out of treatment in October, late October, and my biggest fear was, what are we going to do Thanksgiving? Because I was the one that, did it all. I'd have a big spread, and we'd invite, our AA and OA people. We'd invite family. We'd have a house full. And we had a big playroom, and they'd play games. And it was a wonderful time. But I knew early in recovery I could not do it. I knew I could not do it. So that was my biggest, it was a grief too, but it was my, those first holidays were very, very hard. In that, I had to stay focused on my recovery. Keep in mind that I had overeaten and had eaten massive amounts of sugar and everything else you can think of since I was 4 years old. Yeah, I would find ways to lose weight, and I'd gain it right back, and I'd lose and gain and lose, and I'd had that struggle all my life. And so I came home like a deer on new legs. I was just like a new fawn. I was just wobbly. I couldn't get my bearings. And my daughter Karen, she said, "Mom, why don't y'all come to my house for Thanksgiving?" And that, it was wonderful. She said, "Don't worry about a thing." And so we did. She lived up at Lubbock. And I took my own food and I had to take my own food. And some didn't get as sick as I did. I got very sick in my compulsive overeating and bulimia. And a lot of people, I talk to people, I've been doing this for years, that haven't gotten quite that sick, but I was. And I knew that I had to stay very focused. And so I took my food with me, and it was just a little dab of this, a little dab of that. I measured everything out, had a container for it. I did put it on a plate at least. And her in-laws were all big farmers up in the Lubbock area, big time farmers, and their wives were blue ribbon cookers. Cooks. They were, food was their, that's how they got their good feelings about themselves. And they could not get over what was on my plate. And they would say something about it, and then they would say, "Well, why can't you have this fruit salad?" "Well, it was loaded up with sugar." "Why can't you have this?" "Well, you could have a bite of that." "Well, taste this. Just take a taste of it." And I thought I was going to have to go back to treatment that afternoon. And OA had disbanded before I left. The year before, OA had disbanded. And I was one of them that left because I had to spend that year getting real sick and go to treatment. And so I came home without a sponsor, but I knew my dear, dear friend that we had been in OA together. In fact, she came to OA the Thanksgiving weekend, and she said, and her sister had been in EA, Emotions Anonymous, and she told her about OA. Anyway, that's how we met, and I had her number really memorized. She would never sponsored it. Long story short, I called Wanda off and on all day. I'd get up, excuse myself, I'd go in the bathroom, I would go into the bedroom. This was before cell phones. I'd go into the bedroom and call Wanda, and she walked me through it. Now, keep in mind, Wanda wasn't in recovery either. We were both brand new, starting over. So I'm saying that to say for newcomers, go in with a plan. Go in with a plan. And when, things, maybe get, I'll tell you this, after that Thanksgiving, until this day, we do have a few desserts or something for those who eat desserts. But I started cooking an abstinent Thanksgiving. And we still do that. We still do basically what I did that second Thanksgiving or that second holiday. And so it's a wonderful meal. It doesn't look any different. It's just, you don't put, y'all know the cooks know you don't put as much fat, you don't put enough, anyway. So for those of you that have eating disorders, this is one of the hardest times. It's one of the hardest times. And people will want you to, oh, it won't hurt. This is one day out of the year. Here, you're not going to eat a piece of grandma's pecan pie. She was famous for making pecan pie. You're not going to eat a piece of, you're going to hurt her feelings. And family members don't know what they're doing, but they'll say things like that. They don't know that you have a disease that is a killer disease, and that the abstinence is one of the major parts. It's not all of recovery, but you can't recover until you get abstinent. It is such an important, because it's like an alcoholic. We get drunk on food, the alcoholic gets drunk on alcohol. So go prepared. And for those new alcoholics, and I'm hoping some of them will be listening today, because we have some brand new alcoholics. This will be their first holiday home. And, a lot of families have liquor in the house. That's a part of the holiday ceremony, And if they don't do that, they will start maybe asking questions. Well, I heard you went to treatment, or I heard you went to some kind of a week out in Texas or something. They'll start asking you questions. And then they will, not knowing one thing about what you're doing, they will criticize it in a way. Well, that sure seems extreme to me. You mean you can't have one drink at a wedding? You can't have a glass of champagne? What about a glass of wine? And so for newcomers into AA, you go in there with a plan of action. And what I had to start doing to go, the first time that in fact, we stopped by when my husband picked me up at the airport in Midland, Texas, when I got home from California. It was his idea, and I knew it was not a good idea. And I let him talk me into it, because my mother lived 18 miles away. And he said, we ought to just stop by and see your mother. And I knew that was not the best thing to do. And we didn't stay long, but we went in. And while I was in treatment, in fact, she tried to call out there. And of course, I couldn't talk. And she called the sheriff's department in LA County and had them come to the psych center to release me, to get me out, to spring me free. Somehow I'd gotten into a bad group of people and they wouldn't let me out. So, this is the gospel truth, folks. And then she would write me letters, because I put her in 13 different treatment centers through the years. One of them a couple of times through a mental ward. But anyway, she would write me letters, and she said, if I was there, I would slip one lettuce leaf under the door. That's all you would get to eat. She would write me crap like that. Nevertheless, we did go by to see her. And when I walked in, and it's not about the weight loss, but the food plan we were on out there. We'd lost a lot of weight, and I'd lost 18 pounds. And I walked in, she said, "You don't look any different to me than you've ever looked." And I mean, just so critical. And I knew I could not stay long. I could not stay long. And so it would have probably been best that I not do that. But we did, and we, like I said, we didn't stay long. So go in with, we call it a boundary. You know, in treatment, go in with boundaries. The big book, the Bible says, put on the breastplate of righteousness. You put on that breastplate, that steel armor from here down. Well, from here down, you're going to need that kind of armor of protection going into the family. And I'll tell you, they're not bad people. But they're ignorant. They do not know, unless they have an eating disorder themselves, or unless they're recovering from alcoholism themselves. They have no way of knowing. They don't. And maybe you grew up with, I didn't grow up with a mother like this, but my mother-in-law, the way she got her good feelings about herself was feeding people. And she was one of the main ones that was hard to deal with. Because she would insist on bringing food to my house, and particularly food that I could, that I chose not to eat. You know, I know my husband had a birthday while the week before I got out of treatment. She didn't bring him one birthday cake, she brought him two of his favorites. Well, he didn't even like sweets that much. So I went home from treatment with 2 cakes there. And I didn't know what to do, because I knew, I hadn't been around anything like that. So I called I had no sponsor, and they told us we couldn't call the counselors out there. But one of the counselors had slipped me her phone number. She said, "When you get home, if you have a problem, call me." And I called her. And I was just crying. There's cake here and blah, blah, blah. And she said, "Okay, I want you to take those cakes, and I want you to turn the water on. Do you have a garbage disposal?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Don't trust yourself to put that in the trash." Because, I had done that before. I would throw away something like that and then get it out of the trash and eat it. You know, and when I'd hear them in treatment saying that they ate out of the trash can, I would think, well, you poor people that you had to eat out of the garbage can. But then when I got to thinking about it, I did. I'd throw away food, and then I would look at that, cake or whatever was left over. I'd look at that garbage can and feel so remorseful that I would take it out and eat it. Okay, so she told me, she said, turn the water on in the sink. Now turn the garbage disposal on and start putting those 2 cakes down the garbage disposal. Because you can take it out of the trash. The garbage disposal is a commitment. And you put that in, my husband came in there and helped me, and together we got all that cake and down that garbage disposal. And my mother-in-law a few days later was thrilled that we'd ate both of them so quickly. We never, I don't think, told her any different. But anyway, when you go to the family, or they come to you, don't get into the old roles. Maybe you were the fixer in the family. Don't go in and try to fix everyone and fix if you're visiting someone, you offer to help. That's one thing. Be gracious and offer to help. But you don't rearrange that table. You don't change those flowers or fluff up anything. That's their home. Leave it alone. Ask how you can help and do those chores. And go in, like I said the other day, with an attitude of gratitude. Just be so grateful for those people and thank them for having you. But if you go in with those old roles, like if you're the fixer, be aware that how you want to fix everything, and and if there's any conflict, how you want to get in there and settle the conflict. I have 4 kids. I have 3 daughters, and before recovery, and I've got to be honest because Cam's here, but before recovery, and sometimes after a little bit after recovery, when we knew better, there has been some upsets. Families have upsets, and so go in and don't be the fixer to try to fix everything. Don't fix everything. Get in your hula hoop and, like I said, mind your own business. And if you're the quiet one, find your voice. Go in and visit with them. Don't just, get into the corner and be like a knot on the log. Participate. And if you're the responsible one, well, you're probably the one that put the meal together. But if you're the responsible one, it's let people help you. I took it. I was Martha Stewart before there was ever a Martha Stewart. And my meals, holiday meals, my kids grew up never seeing until I got into treatment, in recovery, they never saw a ketchup bottle on the table or anything. They saw it in little bowls with a little spoon. Every meal, everything, I made it look good because I was coming from a place that I wasn't taught how to do any of that. So I went to the extreme with everything. So if you're the fixer, don't go in there and try to, if they put ketchup on the table, just let them do, that's their house, let them do what they want to. So one of the things, you can go in and diagnose your family. Don't do that, because if you spot it, you got it. And guess what? That's where you got it. That is where you learned. That's where you learn. If you spot it, you got it. You go in there because you're in recovery. You go in there with an arrogant attitude that you have it all together. They will try to cut you down every way in the world. And I'll tell you, I'm not proud of this, but particularly early in Al-Anon, I carried a banner everywhere I went. I tried to force the program down everyone's throats, and holidays were the best time in the world because I had an audience. I had an audience, and I would, and I'm not proud of some of those things. If you want to win friends and influence people and influence your family, keep your mouth shut about your recovery. They do not want to hear it, and I spent years telling them about the program and doing this and doing that, and they really don't want to hear it. And you ought to hear my kids talk sometimes. They would say, well, in every bathroom in our house, put a big book, a meditation book, pamphlets to Alateens, pamphlets to Al-Anon. I was not subtle with it, So don't do that. If there's someone in your family that is suffering from the same addiction that you have, keep it to yourself. Now, if you've lost a lot of weight, they're going to be all over that. They're going to be all over that. They're going to want to know what you did and what you eat. And, well, that doesn't sound very good. And they'll try to get you to eat on that one day, but they don't understand. In some ways, if the subject comes up, you can teach them, because, you don't go in like a teacher, but you can share that if you have a sugar addiction, addicting to carbs, high carbs, and sugar, share that with them. Tell them it is like that, that you're like a diabetic, that it makes you sick. And don't say it makes you fat, because they'll, of course it does, but just tell them that you are allergic to sugar if they ask. And if they ask about your program and how you've lost the weight, just say, I went to treatment, or I got sick enough to get help, and let it go with that. Now, if they want to talk later, if they have a problem, they will call you, or you could, make yourself available to them, but don't force yourself on them. I'm switching back and forth, but if you've got any unfinished business, and you know what unfinished business is, if you are working the steps and you've done a 4-step and you've got all of that stuff churned up, and you're in the middle of the 12 steps working them with the sponsor, please go in and keep your mouth shut about it. Please don't try to tell them what you're doing, because invariably they are going to think that you think that they need to be doing the same thing. I would encourage you to keep your program, hold it very close, very close. They're going to notice the difference. They're going to notice the difference. They're going to notice your behavior. And if you, want to share with them, if they ask some questions, I'll tell you one of the biggest, and Cam remembers this, one of the biggest, my husband and I were entirely different. I talked, he listened. He was a very quiet man, but when he did talk, he had something to say, But they would be playing 42. I mean, my family's a big domino players, and we'd have tables set up, and they'd be playing different games, and he would watch his watch, and about 20 minutes till 8, what he would say is, y'all just carry on, and I'll be back in a little while. And he'd reach down into his basket and bring up his big book, and he would go to his meeting. If the holiday fell on his regular AA meeting, he went. He came right back. He didn't tell us about the meeting. He didn't tell us what we should or ought do. He just went back in. And he did that for years. He was very methodical about his program. And he went to certain days, and and I remember he just reached back and his little basket there, pick up his big book, and he'd say, you folks carry on, I'll be right back, and we'll eat a piece of pie or whatever. He was about that big around. He could have eaten 2 or 3 whole pies, but anyway. If you have unfinished business, don't try to straighten it out during a holiday. Hold it very close to you. And this is where, if you have unresolved feelings towards someone, talk to your sponsor about it. I'll tell you, for me, my situation was pretty severe with my mom, and some of you have pretty severe situations. But I got to where, I knew I had to protect myself when I would go out there. And I was a dutiful daughter. I have a sister, but I was the only one that did much to take care of mother. And so I learned through recovery I had to go, stay as long as I could or felt comfortable doing, and then I had to leave. And I had to go in with dignity, love, dignity, and respect, and treat her that way, regardless of what she did to me. I had to treat her with love, dignity, and respect. And for recovering people, we don't necessarily do that for other people. You know why we treat others with love, dignity, and respect is so we can feel good about ourselves. Because if we don't, if we treat them the way we would like to, and say the things maybe that that's rolling around in our heads that we'd really like to say to them, I mean, for one thing, they'll say things like, well, see, I knew that treatment wasn't going to do you any good. You're just like you've always been. Or ever since you've been going to that, oh, wait, nothing's changed. And so you got to set really healthy boundaries. And you're not going home, it's not a 12-step meeting. I mean, it's not a 12-step call, excuse me, it's not a 12-step call. You may have a house full of users, people that are, not in recovery. That's none of your business. That's none of your business. Now, be willing, if they ask what you're doing, if they can see the change in you, give them just enough information that will entice them to want to know more. Don't give them the full load. Do not give them the full load. Don't tell them your whole entire story. Just be honest with them. And if your recovery has come from a 12-step program, by all means, tell them. Tell them. Remember that we are as sick as we are secret. And, if there's kept secrets in that family, and you have dealt with them in treatment or in your program, don't go in and spill the beans. Do not go in and tell things or talk about things that happened years ago that are those kept secrets, unless you're prepared for a full-out war, because they'll say things like, well, ever since you've gone to treatment, you just know everything, and people will blow up and leave, and then, try to kind of put themselves back together for the next holiday. So you be the example, and it's not easy. Now, like I said, I started with, I got to where I would not go to see my mother. You talk about returning to the scene of the crime, that it was like returning to the scene of the crime. And I would not go, and this was by my sponsor's suggestion. She said, you are not going to Odessa, Texas without me. You do not go out there without me or someone in the program, because, and it was really about the first 5 years. You're not strong enough at this point to go in there and take what she's going to dish out. And my mother was horrible. I'd like to say she was a sweet little old gray-headed lady, and that she was very loving and kind and cooked and, polished silver and all that. She wasn't that kind of woman. She was an alcoholic, prescription drug addict, and never recovered. And she was so bitter about her childhood. And, but I was a dutiful daughter, because one of the things, and that doesn't make me perfect, but I wanted to treat her. How would I treat her if she was a healthy parent? That's what I had to look at. And I didn't get that by myself. That was an Al-Anon sponsor telling me that. How would you treat your parent if they were real healthy? Go in and treat them that way. Treat your mother like that. And set a boundary. And when she brings up old stuff, keep your mouth shut. That's, many times I'd have to walk outside and catch my breath, or go in the bathroom and pray, and go, this was before cell phones. And, I couldn't call because the only phone they had was in the kitchen. So I'd walk down, I'd say, I'm going to go for a walk, and I'd walk down to the little grocery store and call someone. This was after my sponsor quit going with me. So use your sponsors, get help, go in with a plan. And one of the things that I would say, is when you go in with a plan, particularly newcomers, you work with your sponsor before tomorrow. And you come up, because I'm hoping some new people are hearing this, that when you work with a plan, an exit plan, get you an exit plan. And you don't have to leave hateful, you don't have to leave, mad and slam the front door and all. When your time is up, when you have been there as long as you can be there in a healthy way, just say, thank you all, I've enjoyed the day, and I need to go home now. And you don't have to explain all the reasons, but just get yourself out of there, because if it is triggering your brain to want to use a substance, no one's going to take care of you but you. And it's up to you. I don't care how many feelings you hurt. It does not matter how many feelings you hurt if you leave early. Leave. Have an exit plan. So, one of the things, do not, you've heard this, don't have halt. Don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. This is where, and it sounds like I'm talking just mainly to food addicts or people with eating disorders. Stay on your meal plan, because we'll have a tendency to say, well, I'll skip breakfast and I won't eat lunch, or maybe I'll skip supper and then I'll skip lunch, and then I can eat more Thanksgiving, for the noon meal, or if you have it for dinner. I'll not eat all day until don't do that. Don't do that. Look at food as your medication. And you take your medication 3 times a day, and then most of us have a snack at night. So halt. Don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. That tired piece, and if you're the host, and I want to say this, I never ever did it, but I want to say it. Space your time out to where you're not up all night the night before, or maybe you go to bed, or you hear it listening to me, Kim. Maybe you work till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then get just a few hours sleep, and you wake up tired, and you start the day tired. And that's where, let some of that I've got the hiccups. Let some of that stuff go. You don't have to do everything. It does not have to be perfect. You do not have to, it does not have to be perfect. And I'm talking, I'm preaching to myself too. But I don't do all the things that I used to do. One of the things that we did, one of the things that I would really encourage you to do is to keep your routine, that as far as your prayer and meditation, do that, call your sponsor, keep your routine for the day, and don't just leave it to, well, I'll call Friday. Don't leave your tools at home. Take your tools with you, and don't expect the people that are, most of us, we're not the only sick one in the family. We may be the only one that has, are in recovery. But you're going to go back into the zoo and just sit back with a boundary and just say to yourself, no wonder I grew up the way I did. No wonder, don't do it in a judgmental way. Just say, oh my God, I'm surprised I'm doing as well as I'm doing coming from where I came from. Don't tell them that. Just go in quietly and remember that feelings are not facts. They don't care about your feelings. But you need to feel your feelings and report them to someone, particularly if you're new. And because, what we think is, what
I
is
just
it?
forgot it myself.
What we think
It's a thought.
is how we act.
Act.
How we act becomes,
Our character? No, wait.
well, anyway, what you're thinking is the whole point. What you're thinking. I've said this 10 million times, but anyway, okay. So remember, you're not in control. And one of the things that my family's done, and it's, wait, before I do that, if things get a little heated, go for a walk, go around the block, get some fresh air, maybe ask others to go with you or go along, get out of the house for a few minutes and breathe, and particularly if you're new, they may not all do this, but there'll be some family members want to know what you did, what you're doing, why did you decide to go to treatment? You didn't need to go to treatment. We would have helped you. Families will say things like that. We could have helped you if you had asked us. So don't get into any discussion about your treatment or about your program. Just go in and be there for them. See what you can contribute. Okay, thank you, Missy.
Sorry.
This is what we think is how we act. And how we act becomes a habit. Think of that. What we think is how we act and how we act. So every addiction starts with a thought. We don't fall into alcohol. We don't just fall into that first drink. It wasn't my fault. It was just there. It wasn't my fault. Or if that pecan pie was there, they shouldn't have brought it. It wasn't my fault. So remember, before you ever use, there's a thought there, and that's where it needs to stop, is with the thinking. And speak it out loud or go write it down. This is what I'm thinking. Fold it up, put it in your pocket. So if you're thinking you want to drink, you either make an exit out of that house, or you pick up the phone and call someone, or you turn around and ask that boring uncle, that you don't even like to talk to. Ask him how he's doing. Ask him how his garden is or whatever his hobby is. Get interested in them, and hopefully you'll forget about picking up a drink or picking up that extra piece of pie. So what we think is how we act. How we act becomes a habit. And how that habit then becomes our character, and our character becomes our destiny. So start, if you don't have, and most families have some traditions. If you don't have a tradition, I'll tell you, kids love traditions. They love traditions. I started this little thing many, many years ago. I got a little poem, and it's not very long. And it's about the pilgrims coming over and how the pilgrims that first Thanksgiving, all they were given was 5 kernels of corn. Each one had 5 kernels of corn. Each member of those pilgrims, that's all they had. They divided it up. That's all they had to eat. And we complain. So this little poem talks about the kernels of corn. So what I do, I get these little cups, the cupcakes go in a cupcake paper cups, and they are decorated in Thanksgiving. And so I put 5 kernels of corn by each family member's plate. And then as we go around, as we eat, and it's no pressure. I don't think we put pressure on anyone. Cam's looking up and laughing. She remembers her first one.
I've enjoyed this today a lot.
Are you? I see you just laughed.
My 20, as Jeff said, my 29 years of memories are just churning. So thank you.
Well, one thing we never did, we didn't throw out the turkey.
That's right, we never threw out the turkey.
We had some friends that, I'm hoping that it was a frozen turkey that they threw out. They got in a
No,
fight.
it was baked, cooked, ready to go.
Oh, okay, they threw.
No, it was the meal.
And one of them threw the turkey out the back door. So we never got quite that bad. So I'll tell you, kids, like I said, love tradition. So we do the 5 kernels of corn. And I don't do it to embarrass people, but anyway, even my son who doesn't like this stuff. But anyway, we go around while we're eating, and I just say, think of maybe something you're grateful for today. What are you grateful for today? And then pick up one of those little kernels of corn, put it in your cup. And we do that and circle around the family. And if we have guests, we invite them to do it. I guess we invite them. I just put them by their plate and we all do it, And so my little grandson, Spencer, years ago, and then in fact, about every other Thanksgiving, we go to the Dallas Cowboy game. Like I said, my son has a suite, and they serve Thanksgiving meal there, and it's a great day, and this is going to be a great game, and I'm going to have to wear a Cowboys shirt, and then underneath that, I'm going to have to wear a Chiefs shirt and pull it off. And anyway, because I love both teams. But anyway, huh?
Trader.
I love both teams. I love Patrick Mahomes. That's who. So when he, I think, was about 10 or 11, was our time, the year that we were going to, and he did this several times. It's the year that we were going to the Cowboys game. Well, he was just distraught. He said, "What will we do about the kernels of corn?" And he wanted to take it with us, and we did. Do you remember that, Cal? We did.
Yes, I do.
And because, like I said, kids, if they grow up with these traditions, they most of the time will start them in their own family. So if you don't have tradition, start a tradition. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to finish. My oldest daughter is a school teacher, was a former school teacher. She is a master's degree therapist now, out in her little office in my former playroom for the grandkids. Anyway, what she would do, because when we had a bunch of little kids, her children and my son's children, and then Spence, when we had a bunch of them, she'd set up a table and she'd bring artwork, and she would be so good with them, and they would make placemats. And out of construction paper, and they'd decorate them, and that was some of the sweetest memories that we had. So she kept them occupied. They did something they wanted to do. They could decorate. You'd be surprised what those kids, how they made those placemats. So make memories tomorrow. Make good memories, and if the going gets tough, the tough gets going. So you can leave early if you need to. Now, Cam, do not leave early. Now, Cam's not going to be able to go, but she is going to meet us for the game. Isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Cam and Christy have inherited a beautiful dog. And if you want to know the color of, it's Cam's, we call it Cam's dog. It's the color of Cam's hair. It looks just like Cam's hair. It's a beautiful, beautiful dog.
Just like me.
That's right.
That's right.
And we're going to get to celebrate Cam's birthday on the 28th. Isn't that right, Kamala?
I'm not, I played the fifth.
And and then Spencer, my grandson, these are golden retrievers. He got one, and then him and his wife decided they wanted two. And it wasn't long till they decided they didn't want two, they wanted one. So they gave one to Cam and Christy, and they take loving care of Jake. But when it's hard to find with big dogs like that, it's hard to find, someone to come babysit the dogs. So Cam's staying home to babysit the dogs. But she will join us on Thanksgiving Day at the Dallas Cowboy game. So that's what I have. Tell us a little bit about what y'all will be doing tomorrow. If anything about past Thanksgivings or anything that you have to say about Thanksgiving. And if it's your first Thanksgiving, you might want to share.